Hello everyone, myself Gaurangi Kushma, and today in this video we are going to discuss about a legal maxim that is res ispa loquitur. So let's get started with the video and let's understand more about this legal maxim. Okay, so res ispa loquitur is a principle which shifts the burden of proof on the defendant by applying it. Generally, it is the complainant who needs to offer evidence to support the guilt of the defendant in a lawsuit. There is, however, a shift while the principle is used. The burden of proof shifts to the defendant. On the part of the defendant, there is a presumption of guilt, and it is up to him to show his non-liability and that was not his action that caused the injuries of the complainant. Accidents happen all the time, and several times it's because of the negligence of others. So, under the law of the tort, the duty of the proof is on the appellant. That is, anyone that is the object of the tort in order to prove someone's negligence. Proving that the perpetrator was at fault and even collecting facts against his act or negligence becomes very complicated. The maximum of res ispa loquitur then entered into effect, keeping this in mind, under which a complainant can use circumstantial evidence to prove negligence. Res ispa loquitur is one of the most commonly expressed maxims emerging in tort cases. The true purpose and effect of this implementation, however, are unclear despite its a frequent use. Its ambiguity is the product of the court's prosperity and to extend a doctrine outside its original meaning and to interpret the term as a nostrum capable of addressing a variety of evidence issues. The maxim has been described in numerous ways. The thing speaks for itself is simply translated. It's a phrase often used in actions for injury by negligence where no proof of negligence is required beyond the incident itself, which is such as necessarily to involve in negligence. So, a development of the principle. The phrase res ispa loquitur was first applied in a case where usury was visible on the face of a sued instrument. In 1863, in its current use in Wine versus Bodel, the first verb was the first word used was where the complainant was wounded by a barrel that dropped from the window of the defendant. In that case, Pollock CB said, there are many incidents from which no presumption of negligence can arise, but this is not true in every case. It's a duty of the person who keeps barrel in the warehouse to take care that they do not roll out, and I think the such case will beyond all doubt afford prima facie proof of negligence. The present case on the facts comes like this: a man passes from a front of a four dealer's premises and a barrel of a floor rolled down upon him. It's a clear that barrel was in the possession of the defendant, who's owned the property and who's liable for the conduct of his servants who managed it. And the fact is that dropped is prima facie evidence of neglect, and the complainant who harmed it is not bound to show that did not fall without negligence, nor whether they are contradictory details. So the above judgment was accompanied by others, and in which the term was used in the same way, and still the numerous related case laws, more just jurisdictions use this maxim. Now the critical analysis. In the law of torts is the foundational that the responsibility of proving negligence rests on whom it alleges it. It's the consistently stated that negligence will never be presumed, even if there's a presumption of aiding the plaintiff by the preponderance of the fact, he must still show that the defendant has been negligent. However, some courts consider that the doctrine of res ispa loquitur to symbolize the concept of evidence that removes such cases from this general rule. Courts that dispute that this amounts to an exception consider a res ispa loquitur as merely representing a circumstance where the fact and the essence of the accident itself speaks, that is, offers evidence of negligence. In order to relieve the plaintiff of the initial obligation to prove negligence, or rather, perhaps to discharge a duty on its part. Now, moving towards the essential of it. So, first essential is inference of negligence. In any case, for the res ispa loquitur aspect to be made applicable, the accident should be such that it could not have occurred if without fault the usual course of things had happened. A barrel of flour, for example, will not crash on someone's head randomly if the group is fairly vigilant. And indeed, in the center of the city, a clock tower would take special caution, and if its fall on the causes damages to any victims, the defendant will be liable responsible for the same under this theory. But apparently, In such cases, it's not necessary to provide clear proof of negligence, but the claimant must create a prima facie argument either by direct and or circumstantial evidence of negligence and dereliction of duty by the defendant. So the second essential is exclusive control by the defendant. The element that caused the harm must be directly under the influence of the criminal or his agent. It's not necessarily important for all the situation to be influence of the defendant, because if the circumstances contributing to the injuries were under the control of someone except the defendant, then inadequate proof against the defendant is simple occurrence of the accident. The third essential is freedom from contributory negligence. The third premises, which is important, is that the claimant or the third party has not caused or contributed to the injury sustained by him. Where it's known that the claimant or the third party contributed to the act caused the claimant harm, this theory shall not be applicable. Now, moving towards the some of the case laws, let's look into some of the case laws in Achut Rao Haribhau Khodwa and others versus State of Maharashtra and others. The deceased were referred to the government hospital for a sterilization process by the appealate's relative. However, during the process, a mob was left inside the body of the victim, resulting the development of the pus and eventual death. In order to strike down the High Court order and the pay damages of rupees 1,75,000, the appellant brought an action to the Supreme Court. The appellant did not claim the fault of the doctors, and res per loquitur doctors doctrine was then extended to keep the defendants liable, as the case found that it was a reckless act of the defendant to abandon the towel that induced the death, and that this act was well under the influence of the defendant. While it's normal that certain foreign bodies are normally left behind after an operation in the body of the patient deliberately or accidentally, and that's the body usually battles the foreign bodies. It was noted that it was an incredibly negligent act to leave a mob. The High Court order was cast aside. Therefore, the case of neglect of general incidents, res per loquitur, should not be imposed. But when the same negligence is of very high degree, causing significant injury, the maximum can be attributed. Now, moving toward the conclusion, res per loquitur is a legal concept that means that thing speaks for itself. In the law of wrongdoing, it is the very common doctrine. It is circumstantial, a secondary proof that infers fault from the very existence of the accident that has happened, and there is a shortage of clear evidence against the offender. Res per loquitur is enforced because it can be said that the crash would not have occurred without the defendant is liable. The modern period, res per loquitur, seeks growing applicability. It is utilized in the case such as in the maxim in the MC Mehta versus Union of India, usually referred to as the Oleum gas leak case, and typically in all cases where the public's rights are abused and aggrieved and fault cannot be defined by them, so the onus is transferred on the defendant not to show negligence. It is primarily applicable in all prima facie cases where the fault of on the part of the complainant is apparent at first instance and without which the damage would not have happened. It is assumed that the defendant is negligent in such a situation, and it's some to him to explain why he is not negligent. It is a sign of a law that the existence of an accident in the circumstances can allow an inference or pose a suspicion of negligence, or render a prima facie case of a claimant and raise a question to evidence for the defendant to provide with an answer. This is just a quick way of stating that the facts involved with the crash are such of sort that the judge is reasonable in the light of the common sense and previous practice in inferring that the accident was likely the result of the fault of the defendant in the absence of any justification or other proof that the judge claims. So by this, I end my video here. Thank you so much for your patient listening. I hope you all are safe and fine.